afternoon, rest of the world. Welcome to your review video on this Thursday afternoon, March the 19th, following this morning's lecture on the Ideologies of Change. In the past week, we've been building the case for the idea of the revolutions of the 18th and early 19th century, the Atlantic revolutions, the Industrial Revolution, and how those had begun to transform Western and global society. Now, having moved through those events, we're focused on this period between 1815 and 1914, defined at either ends by great European conflicts. A time of relative stability, at least in a political sense, but a time when also there are a number of ideas that are springing up, the isms of this era, that are proposing or driving or calling for further change and transformation. Today we focused on two of those. The first of them was Darwinism, or the ideas of Charles Darwin, and particularly the theory of evolution by the process of natural selection. As we said, evolution is not entirely Darwin's own invention. It's just that natural selection, that idea that chance mutations and the development of certain particular traits is what leads to the differentiation of species, is the mechanism that is needed to explain this that had been lacking. And in this way, Darwin makes the ideas of evolution seem much more tenable in a way that had not been possible before. We also said that for many people this is troubling, not so much because it seems to contradict a literal reading of Genesis 1, but because of the implications that it has about the directionality of the universe. And is there a guiding hand of some kind that's at work? Natural selection, of course, does not exclude the existence of God, but it doesn't require it either. And for many people, this is a troubling idea. We move from there into the ideas of Romanticism. And we saw that Romanticism as an intellectual movement is expressed in literature, in poetry, in the visual arts, and in music, as well as philosophy and a variety of other fields. And although it takes a lot of different forms and goes by different names in different contexts, we know that it's unified by a few central themes. First of all, there is the implicit critique of Enlightenment reason and rationality. The idea that there has been an excessive influence on those virtues of humanity at the expense of emotion as a way of knowing. And the Romantics simply want to make the argument that emotion is an important part of real human experience and a way of knowing the world. Secondly, there is an implicit critique of industrialization and of the processes of mechanization that have come along with it. To the Romantics, these movements are contrary to the essential human spirit, and they prefer to emphasize instead the glories of the natural world, the beauties of spiritual life, and above all, the bonds of unity that are created by the human spirit and the human experience of unity in a variety of different ways, but most especially, of course, human unity as found in the nation. And we saw a number of examples of this in Thomas Carlyle's idea of the Geist that makes a particular nation. In William Turner's Fighting Temeraire and his sadness over the loss of the national past. In, of course, the poetry of Sir Walter Scott, evoking this idea that belonging to a homeland, having a nation of one's own, is the very definition of what determines the ability of a person to have a successful life. That bond of national unity, that spirit of nationalism that Romantics are beginning to evoke, will be central to our conversations next Tuesday as we move further into the 19th century and begin to understand the relationships of states as they become more and more entrenched in these national identities. Looking forward to talking about that with you next week. Have a good weekend.